We're going to call this meeting in order. It is 7:32 p.m. It's the Municipal Land Use Board meeting on 5/20/2020. And I'll call for the roll call, please, Marina.
All right. Mayor Papleo.
You're muted.
Present.
Okay. Mr. Chairman,
Here.
Ms. Boland is absent.
She is excused. She's working tonight.
Okay. Mr. Bartoloni? I don't see him. Mr. Merman?
Present.
Mr. Grasso?
Here.
Mr. Cray?
Here.
Mr. Caslin?
Here.
Councilman Kanigo?
Here.
Mr. Gibbons?
Here.
And Mr. Esposito?
Here.
Okay.
Proper notice of this meeting has been displayed on both the bulletin board at Borough Hall by the Bergen Record and people that are interested, that had an interest in this meeting. We don't have to do the flag salute. We don't have that. And we have no fire exits to worry about. So I think that this suffices. So our first order of business, and of course, I thought I downloaded the agenda and I don't have it. So Marina, I'm going to ask you to just walk me along the agenda, please.
Okay, so first we have the approval of minutes from the April 15th, 2020 meeting.
Okay, do I have any comments on that, on those minutes? Can I get a motion to approve?
And I just have one comment, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I'm just pulling them up here. Just on page 2, it indicated that I abstained from the vote of the adoption of the fair housing element. I actually did vote on that, but I had abstained in the next application, which was the Jersey Mike's application. That's correctly reflected. So you just have to change my abstention of the fair housing element to a yes.
Okay.
I see Mr. Bartolone joined.
Hello.
Marina?
Okay,
Good
Mr.
evening.
Bartoloni is here.
I'm here.
Okay,
So
so
can I
the,
vote on the corrected minutes?
I'm sorry, you broke up.
I'm looking for a motion on the corrected minutes of the last meeting.
So moved. Gibbons?
Second.
who was the
Lou Grasso.
second? Mr. Okay.
Lou Grasso.
Yeah. My connection is not working well as it did this time. Everybody seems to be a little delayed. Okay, can I have so we have a motion by, who was it? Was Ryan, right?
Gibbons?
Yes.
And Grasso second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposed? Any abstentions?
Yes, Dick Merman was absent, so he abstains.
And I abstain also. I was absent from the May 6th meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
Next up is we have two memorializations. You want to walk us through that, please?
So the first memorialization that we have on the agenda is for Pat Dom LLC, which was approved at the meeting of April 15th, 2020.
Okay, so if everybody remembers, that was we're changing hands to a new ownership. They required a food license. We heard it. We approved it. The memorialization is here. I'm going to need some guidance from our counsel here because the applicant is deficient in his escrow. Marina?
Yes, I spoke with the applicant's attorneys this week, and they agreed to the escrow deposit for the additional fees.
Okay, we haven't received that yet. Is that right, Mr. Alter?
We have not received it.
Yep. So how do you want to handle that? You want to go, we'll go ahead with the memorialization, or you want to hold it off until we get the escrow? How do you want to handle that?
You can make the vote. You can take the vote if you'd like. There's not a problem with that.
Okay. Okay, I'll entertain a motion on the approval, on the memorialization.
So moved. Gibbons?
So that's Gibbons and
Second, Cray.
Michael Cray. So Gibbons make the motion, Cray second, and that'll be a roll call vote. Marina, please.
Okay. Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Mr. Arkelian?
Yes.
Ms. Boland is absent. Mr. Bartoloni and Mr. Merman were absent at that meeting. Mr. Grasso?
Yes.
Mr. Cray?
Yes.
Mr. Caslin?
Yes.
Councilman Canigo?
Yes.
Mr. Gibbons?
Yes.
And Mr. Esposito?
Yes.
Motion passes. Okay, next up is another memorialization. Would you
Yes,
take
this
through that,
one,
please?
this memorialization is for the application of Joseph's Pizzeria, which was approved at the meeting of April 15, 2020. It was also a site plan approval for a food handler's license.
Okay, so we approved that application, and this is strictly memorializing that application. So can I have a motion on to approve that?
So moved.
Second. Second, Caslin.
Ray and Caslin. Can I have a roll call, please?
Okay, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Mr. Arkelian?
Yes.
Ms. Boland is absent, and Mr. Bartoloni and Mr. Merman were absent at the meeting. Mr. Grasso?
Yes.
Mr. Cray?
Yes.
Mr. Caslin?
Yes.
Councilman Canigo?
Yes.
Mr. Gibbons?
Yes.
And Mr. Esposito?
Yes.
Motion passes. Thanks, folks. Okay, we have one application this evening, and we're going to go from completeness right to the application. So, Mr. Shin, are you on board? Ben Shim?
Yes, I am.
Okay. This application is Mr. Ben Shim, 186 Reservoir Avenue, block 1209, lot, looks like 47, of the Borough River Edge. The applicant is seeking a variance on lot coverage. So, Mr. Barons, we're looking for completeness.
Yes, I've reviewed the application and materials. The application can be deemed complete and can be heard this evening.
Ms. Finley?
Yes, but prior to the meeting, I reviewed the proofs, the application materials, and supporting documents, and they meet the minimum requirements required by law for the, so the board may proceed tonight.
Okay, can I have a motion?
One question.
Yep.
I guess the documents that Marina and Tom received are more updated than what the board members received, because I looked at the certification of tax payment and that was not signed, and the affidavit of service was not filled out. But you have different documents, I assume?
Yes, we received the signed certification and the mailings, the signed mailings. So
Oh, great.
they're good to go.
Okay. Good catch, Michael. Have a motion to move this application forward.
So moved. Gibbons?
Mr. Gibbons?
Second,
Mr. Merriman,
second,
Okay.
and roll call, please.
Mr. Mayor? I believe you're muted. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, yes. Mr. Arkelian?
Yes.
Ms. Boland is absent. Mr. Bartoloni?
Yes.
Mr. Merman?
Yes.
Mr. Grasso?
Yes.
Mr. Cray?
Yes.
Mr. Caslin?
Yes.
Councilman Kanigo?
Yes.
Mr. Gibbons?
Yes.
And Mr. Esposito?
Yes.
Very good. Okay, so now we're going to move to the regular part of the meeting. And again, this is Mr. Ben Shim of 186 Reservoir Avenue, block 1209, lot 47. And the applicant, again, is looking for lot coverage relief. The borough allows 35%, and the applicant is looking for 46.9% of lot coverage. So, Mr. Shim, you want to let us know what you're looking to do here?
Yeah, so I'm
Mr.
looking
Shim,
to,
prior to giving testimony, could you please affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
yes,
Yes, and could you please state your name and address for the record?
sure, it's Ben Shim. I'm at 186 Reservoir Avenue, River Edge, New Jersey.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Shim, do you have anybody else that'll be testifying tonight, or is it just you?
It's just myself.
Okay. Go ahead, sir.
So I was planning to expand the size of my backyard patio to the extent that I'm requesting, primarily to provide a safer environment for my kids to play when they're doing their sports activities or any of their activities, whether they're riding their scooter or whatnot. And the reason I state that is, if you're familiar with Reservoir Avenue, it's a fairly busy street and cars go pretty fast on it. And my concern is that, you know, my son, if I put a hoop in the front, it's going to bounce into the street and there's going to be a car that's going 40 miles an hour when they should obviously be going much slower. That's going to hit my kid and there's going to be a tragedy. So every time my son plays outside, I don't want to have to worry about him. Every time he decides to shoot some hoops or my daughter wants to ride a scooter or something, I don't have to worry about, you know, these speeding cars hitting my kids. And also I think it creates a safer environment for my neighbor's kids to come over once this whole quarantine is over, to then find a safer spot to play, given that the street is so busy. So that's the primary motivation behind the request.
Okay. And the patio will be made of
It's going to be made out of papers.
brick pavers. Brick pavers?
Yes. Yes.
Do you have anything else you want to add at this point?
No, that was the extent of the request.
Mr. Barron's.
All right, so I'm going to attempt to share my screen and just providing the breakdown as I see it of the existing and proposed coverages, so bear with me. I hope this goes according to plan. Let's see. Okay, so here you're looking at the existing survey, and based on my assessment or measurements of the property, the lot itself, as indicated on the survey, is approximately 7,536 square feet. If you factor in the driveway, paved areas, and the house, not including the patio, the existing coverage is approximately 34.3%. If you include the patio, the existing patio, which is about 12 feet by 20 feet, or 240 square feet, you're up at 37.5%. So that's the total existing condition of the property as it exists today, 37.5%. Scrolling down is the proposal, which shows a proposed patio of, sorry, I'm trying to get out of that measurement, which shows a proposed patio of approximately 20.9 by 45 feet. So that's what's being proposed. It's approximately 945 square feet, and that would bring the total coverage to about 46% and change. So that is the proposal before the board. In terms of addressing the variance relief, the applicant must provide a justification as to the public benefits versus any detriments, and make a demonstration that the granting of the variance is not inconsistent with the intent and purpose of master plan and zoning ordinance. So at this point, I'll ask, I guess, the board members if they have any. I'm sorry, they can smell fear like sharks. I would ask the board if they have any questions or comments at this time regarding the patio.
Okay, so I'm gonna go down the line here, so that way I have some sort of order. I'll start off with Mr. Bartolone. Do you have any questions, comments?
No, not at this time.
Mr. Merman?
Yes, I always have comments. The applicant's proposing approximately 47% of improved lot coverage, while the permissible is 35. And Tom, if I heard you correctly, you're saying it's already over the 35 as it sits there now at 37.5. I reviewed the documents, and while I would love to grant relief, I have a limit to the amount of relief I can grant. My personal threshold for this minimum, this improved lot coverage is 40%. And I, right now, unless I'm otherwise convinced, will not entertain anything over 40%.
Okay. Anything else?
Not at the moment.
Okay. I'll go to Mr. Grasso.
This is a question for the applicant. Is your property on an incline or is it flat?
Which portion are you asking about? The
Well,
front
the
yard,
backyard.
backyard? The backyard, it's, it has the natural pitch. Away
Pitch
from the
is
house.
which way? From side to side or front to rear?
It's basically away from the house. So on the side, it's away from the house. In the back, it's slightly pitched away from the house.
All right, so your backyard is pitched towards the lot behind your home? Is that what you're saying?
The lot behind my home is elevated. There's a retaining wall, but it's slightly pitched towards that, and then there's a slight pitch towards it's crowned, so it's pitched
Okay.
away from it.
Has there ever been any, at this point, since if I'm following it correctly, your backyard is pitched towards the retaining wall in the back?
For the most part, yes.
If there's a lot of rain, is there water that builds up in front of the retaining wall?
No. If anything, the water that builds up is coming from, because I'm at the bottom of the hill, it comes from all the neighbors that are above me. So if anything, I think my lot is taking on 8 times the amount of drainage that it should be, because everyone basically just dumps their water sequentially down the hill. And because I'm at the lowest part of the hill, my house is essentially taking all the drainage for every house.
So your house is on the corner of Van Son?
It's at the corner.
Right across from the new construction? Is
Yeah.
it? Okay. All right, I don't have further questions.
Mr. Cray.
Yeah, again, I just want to make sure I've got the numbers right. So your existing paver patio is about 200 square feet, and you're requesting it to be expanded to 940 square feet. So almost 5 times what it is now. That's about right?
Yes.
Okay, and the property you're on right now, it's a conforming property, correct? I mean, as far as lot size, frontages, your setbacks, et cetera, it looks like other than, maybe a small exceeding of the lot coverage, everything else is pretty much conforming, correct? You're not on an undersized lot. It's not a particularly irregularly shaped lot or anything like that, correct?
Yes. Correct.
Okay. So, I mean, other than the traffic, is there any other hardship, any other issue that you're trying to address here with requesting this, almost 38% increase in the size of the coverage there?
I mean, the size of the coverage does also need to include some usability for some chairs outside. So the majority of the expansion, if not all of it, is for the kids' usage. Like having them scoot around on a 12 by 20 patio that also has a table on it doesn't really leave much room for them to have, distance to move around. So by putting that, essentially, I've created an enclosed safe space, and then also, I don't have to worry about any strangers coming up to them. Just creates a safer environment and the peace of mind.
Okay. Okay, I'm good.
Okay, Mr. Caslin.
Mr. Shim, how did you come up with the dimensions that you're requesting here? Is this just to keep in line with the back envelope of the house?
I mean, that was the initial frame of it, and then when I kind of saw where the existing patio table is, it kind of just aligned with the space that it would need for the scooters to move around, as well as for my son to, shoot hoops in the back.
And if I could just chime in, Tom Barron's planner. So Mr. Shim and I had talked at the beginning of the application process, and we actually moved it in the required 5 feet from the rear yard. So it is conforming in terms of setbacks. So that was, it has been reduced.
Okay, and you're just to recap, you're intending to lay brick pavers, this is not going to be concrete?
No, it's not concrete. It's going to be pavers.
Okay. No further questions.
Councilman Kaninga, good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. How are you? I pulled it up on Google Earth. Can everybody see this? Is this your house? Is that? Let me see.
Oh, yeah, it's the side view, yeah.
Okay, that's from above, right?
Yeah.
That's the current little patio over there?
Yep.
Okay. Just so everybody can visualize it.
Can you bring that in? Can you bring that in for us, Michelle? So hold that back up again, Dario.
Okay.
So we can see it a little better.
Dario, if you pull it up on your desktop, you could share it.
I don't have Google Earth installed. That's why I did it on my phone.
Oh, okay.
If anybody else does, maybe they can pull it up.
If you don't mind, I'll throw it up real quick.
Yeah, that would be great.
This is what I've got from Google. Sorry.
Perfect.
Better you than me, Tom.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Wow, look at that house next door there. That's interesting. So
I'll pan out a little.
Yeah, that gives us a good eye view.
Absolutely.
Are you putting in actual basketball hoops, like on either side or both sides?
No, I'm not gonna like dig it into the ground. It's just gonna be a portable one that I'm just gonna roll into the back.
Okay. All right. I have nothing further. Thank you, and thank you for putting that up, Tom.
Mr. Gibbons.
I don't necessarily have any questions. I think my main concern is, as Mr. Merman's, that it's a lot. I understand your concerns with the street and all. Safety is always obviously very important, but it just seems like a lot of coverage for me. It's a really big patio for the backyard. I understand why you want to do it, but that's my only concern, that it's a lot of coverage.
Mr. Esposito.
Yes, I think the coverage is a little bit more than it should be. I can understand why. So that's the only point that I have at this point. They can maybe make it a little bit, shorter or wider. That would be okay with me.
And is that it, Mr. Esposito?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I am going to go back to anybody else have anything on?
Yes, I have one thing. If this was approved, I would recommend that if there is any water problem or something, that Mr. Shim would go along with the guidelines of the borough engineer. If seepage pitch would be required to alleviate some type of flooding.
Oh yeah, I mean, if anything, I would hope that would also apply to my neighbors who are dumping their water on my lawn.
I agree.
And if I might add, that might be an issue that we could look at in general anyway, if that is a problem, an existing problem. So.
Oh yeah, no, that'd be appreciated. But you know, I mean, I again, yeah, I mean, obviously, I would want to make sure that there's no water issues or drainage issues that are being faced, and I would be more than willing to address those. But I've tried to, especially during this quarantine, I've realized how much my kids are playing outside, and even the occasional car that drives by, it's just going too fast. And you know, I'm willing to put in the investment to make my backyard a safer environment for them, where they can just play in there. And you know, it's not my intention to make any drainage issues or cause any water issues. And I would be more than willing to address that if that came up.
Okay, great.
Follow-up question. Yeah, a number of people, and I'm one of them.
Michael?
Yeah.
Mr. Press? Just hold 1 second. I want to get the mayor in there first. And then
Oh,
we'll
I'm sorry. I apologize.
Mayor?
Mr. Shim, I certainly understand your concerns, but if I'm not mistaken, you have a 30-foot setback and a double-wide driveway. Isn't that correct?
I guess I don't know the dimensions of my driveway.
So your front lawn is 30 feet back. It's a setback of 30. And your driveway appears to me, I'm looking at it right now on Google, seems to be double wide, which means that you can fit 2 vehicles on it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And it appears to me that you could not only fit 2 vehicles right to left, you could fit 2 vehicles front to back.
Yes.
Okay. And I do understand your concern about your children, but I've walked Reservoir many, many times, and it's certainly not like Howland or like Midland. And I do have compassion for you, but I think this is an extraordinary high request from us. And our 35 is our maximum number, and we've been willing to go up to 40. But I can't see going much beyond that, especially because even though, sir, I respect your concern for your children, if that was the grounds for which we made these sort of exceptions, we would be making these sort of exceptions all across the town. And so I don't see this as a substantive reason, especially given the traffic on Reservoir compared to some of our more busy streets. I do have compassion for what you're saying, but I have to go with Mr. Merman and others in saying that I can't imagine why we would consider this past 40. But those are my thoughts, and I just wanted to share them.
All right, I'm going to take my turn. I'm going to chime in along with the mayor and Mr. Merman. You know, River Edge has a very high water table to begin with and a lot of water issues. And down on that town particularly, the issues can be a little bit more significant than up north in the area where I live, although the water issues are serious here as well. And every time we take apart and we increase impervious coverage, we take away the green space that absorbs some of that water. So I too am very hesitant to go beyond the 40%. So I would ask Mr. Shim if we allowed you to go up to the 40%, if that would help suffice to fix some of your backyard issue, as opposed to maybe completely what you want. So
I mean,
so I pose that to you.
yeah, if I were to take that into consideration, I mean, I think that it doesn't really provide the relief that I was looking for. I mean, if what Tom mentioned is accurate in terms of his measurements, then and apparently it's 37-ish already. I mean, a 3% increase barely gives me any any relief in terms of the patio size.
The problem is that you used up a lot of your coverage with the driveway and the pavers going into the house. That's a significant amount of coverage already that you've taken up. And certainly, if you wanted to, just like I did when my kids were young, I just blocked my driveway with the car and let the kids play basketball in my driveway as opposed to the back. I guess the question I would ask is, would you rather have us vote on your proposal, or would you rather have to vote on the 40% that's like it would probably be more likely to pass? And I'm not speaking for the other members. I'm just asking you that question.
I mean, I understand the concern around the impervious coverage. What I don't understand, and I understand there is a precedent or there is a unwritten rule around 40%. My concern is,
keep in mind, by the way, that the borough code says 35%. So anything we do above 35% is beyond beyond what the borough had intended for lot coverage. Understood. When they put the 35-foot in the ordinance. So
understood.
In relief to an applicant, we try to weigh everything and try to weigh the benefit for the applicant. But of course, paramount is the detriment to the borough, and what this does to help the borough. And with the kind of variance you're looking for, there has to be some sort of inherited benefit for the borough. And quite honestly, I just don't see that. Home with 40% coverage.
May I ask a question, Mr. Chairman?
You certainly can. Mr. Canengo?
Yes, please. Do you get water in the backyard right now?
Not that much.
All right. The reason I'm asking is because perhaps there's a way to improve drainage in that property so that it increases the volume of water that it absorbs while still allowing the applicant to increase the space maybe a little past the 40%. Given the aerial view that we saw, I don't see that it would really create a large detriment. I understand that the 46% might be too high, but maybe a couple of extra percentage points helps him out and doesn't really damage things when you take into consideration that whatever work is done in preparing the area, you can increase drainage and realign drainage so that water doesn't gather there. Therefore, you're serving both purposes of helping out the homeowner and making sure that drainage is taken into consideration. Is that something possible? And perhaps I'm asking of the professional if we could hear that. That would be something that everybody would consider, of course.
And I just want to make one note too on kind of relief here. If I'm doing my math right, this is 7,500 square foot lot. 3% would be 225 extra square feet. Right? And 7,500 times 0.03, so we got 225. So
it's 7,500 and change, but yeah.
Yeah. So okay. So we'll just use my basic math. If you did say you'd go for the 40, you could double the size of what you have, approximately.
Which is actually why I was saying maybe a couple of extra percentage points not only allows him to double the width, but add a little bit of length to it as well, so that he has a nice increased patio. His kids can barbecue and have family time out there. Because look, especially now during quarantine, our home is where we are all the time, and we have to take these things into account. And we've got a homeowner here who's got a beautiful home Obviously, he puts care into it. You can tell by looking at it. Perhaps we help, a little bit, while again taking into consideration that perhaps we put a little more effort into the drainage issue to make sure that there's no extra water accumulation. And look, I know a lot of backyards get water pulled in, and to fix it up, it costs a lot of money. Something like this might help other homeowners as well. Just a thought.
And if I could just chime in, I think it might help to understand what those percentages again reflect. Mr. Gibbons touched on it. So again, the existing patio is 240 square feet. The proposal is 945. At 40%, the patio would be approximately 450 square feet.
Can you throw up the drawing again so we can just visualize it while you're talking?
Yeah, bear with me. Let me get there. Okay. All right, bear with me here. Okay, can everyone see that?
Yep.
All right. So again, existing patio, 240 square feet, proposed 945. At 40%, you'd have a patio of 450 square feet, and any adjustment percentage-wise of 1% is about an extra 75 feet. So, if you went 2%, that's an extra 150 feet. 1%, an extra 75, or vice versa.
A way to show us, I don't know if you got the tools and you're able to, I don't mean to put you on the spot,
yeah,
but to give us an approximation, not, just so you give the homeowner an idea as well, because maybe he wants to amend it to something like that, and perhaps the board might consider it.
What, I'm sorry, could you say it again?
If you can give us an estimation, if there's any tool that you can just kind of show us where
what that looks like,
42% might bring him, understanding this is,
almost be double, really. I mean, ballpark.
About,
right?
yeah, give or take. Let me finagle with my doodads here.
Yeah, a little box maybe or something.
At 450, it'd be roughly 20 by 25, right? I mean, a little bit less than that, 20 by 22. So
yeah,
you could double
some
the width of
dimension
it.
like that.
And there you go. So, Mr. Shim, take a
I'm
look.
making this up on the fly.
Yeah, understood.
This would be at about 42%, not 40%. The box I've just drawn. So 40% would be slightly less than that. Again, this is about 42%. Excuse me?
Could you show us what 40% would look like?
Yeah, I'm kind of guesstimating here, but bear with me.
Yeah.
A little.
I didn't know you could do this in Adobe.
Well, I've learned some tricks along the way. This is it's crude, but it is what it is. So the smaller red is about 40%. The bigger red is about 42%.
Thank you, Tom. That's terrific. Thank you.
And there may be an argument to be made about drainage being a public improvement if it's warranted in this type of situation.
Mr. Sim, would you be willing to, if this were approved at, say, 42%, would you be willing to amend your application with the stipulation that any water retention recommendations that are made by our planner and our engineer would be obviously incorporated into the
Sorry, you cut in and out. At 42, just let me just recap.
At 42%, if you were to agree to drop to 42%, and I'm not even saying the board will approve this, but if you were willing to drop to 42% and stipulate that you'll follow the orders of the borough engineer as far as water retention, would that be something you would look at, or do you want to go ahead with what your plan?
I would be amenable to the 42%.
I'd like to hear from some of the board members. Mr. Murray?
Yes, I hear you. I would strongly suggest that it be amended for a subsurface disposal system for the increased amount as a minimum, and that it be submitted to, reviewed, and approved by the borough engineer.
Mhm.
And that would include the installation. He has his own procedures there.
Mayor Papaleo?
Yeah, I would find that to be acceptable. I think it respects the water table issue in that area. It is an accommodation that I think is in the benefit of the borough, especially some sort of water management system placed under the ground. So yes, I could definitely vote for that, and I think that's good for the people of River Edge, and I think it's good for Mr. Shim, and so that would be reasonable for me.
So my feeling is very simple. I am a proponent of limiting to 40%, but this is a rare type property with the because of the driveway, and it does allow for the, you know, this you can't take away from the driveway at this point, but the house is back a little further than the typical 5 foot. So on circumstance, I think I could see my way clear as well to if the applicant were to amend to 42%. And I'm going to ask him. But first of all, let me just go back. Does anybody else have anything to say? Mr.
Yeah,
Sims,
I just have a question. Maybe the planner can answer this, and anybody who has experience with this. Before the Mr. Shim agrees to it, or wants to go along with it. In terms of these water dispersal, what are potential costs to the homeowner for having to put in this type of drainage for an issue that maybe doesn't exist at this point? Maybe he should know what that kind of cost might entail.
I'll say it depends, and it depends because it's dependent upon whether it's intended to capture just the patio or more of the surface area. The property may already have one that captures the house, the roof leaders, the driveway. We don't know what's there. So
yeah, we already have seepage pits for that.
So you already have those. There may be an opportunity to even tie into what exists. Sometimes seepage pits are oversized. So that may be something, again, to explore with the engineer. But let's say you were doing one just for the patio itself. And again, we're talking ballpark 500, 600 square feet. The person who installs it would generally install a drain in the ground in the vicinity of the patio. There'd be some sort of plastic box or structure in the ground surrounded by gravel. I mean, you're probably talking about a couple $1,000, realistically, for that smaller situation. But again, there may be an opportunity to tie in what's already there and capture, the patio surface area.
Alphonse?
Right.
Yeah. No, that answers the question. But I just thought that's pertinent information when you're trying to reach a decision. Adding a couple $1,000s to the cost of a project isn't insignificant. So.
No.
Yeah. I guess I'd like a little more clarity on the water issue here, because I'm not sure whether I heard that there is or there is not a water problem there. Mr. Shim at one point said his neighbors, the water was leaving all their property and going to his, at least intimates that there's a water problem there. But I've heard that in the same conversation that he doesn't really have a water problem. So I guess, what problem are we solving by putting in a drain? Is there a water problem we're solving, or we're
not necessarily a water problem that we're solving, Mr. Craig, but what we're doing is we're achieving the object of having this coverage set, this percentage, and exceeding it, but getting a little more drainage. There may not be a massive problem, but there's always going to be on heavy rains in everybody's backyard here in River Edge. You got pools of water gathering. He testified that there's water that comes from his neighbor's yard, so there's going to be pools. So if there's a way that the drainage can be improved, and maybe be improving around his property. So I was just offering a way that he might get a better patio built for himself, and we may achieve the purpose, the limit.
And to Councilman Caningo's point, there has to be a benefit for the borough. And of course, better drainage on our properties is always a benefit to the borough. And that proves out the weight that you need for us to approve this.
Right, but are we basically saying we're holding him to drainage that's sized for the size of the patio or for whatever condition exists upon examination?
That is, Mr. Cray, as we usually do. We make it subject to review from the borough engineer, and he'll follow the instructions of the borough engineer. Plain and simple.
Okay.
Mr.
Okay.
Sims, and that?
Okay, so is that I just don't understand.
When you put in your building plans, subject to our approval, the borough engineer will review it. You'll sit with him and he'll work out whatever drainage you need to do, and you'll do what he tells you to do. He's our borough, and that's what he does.
Okay, so is that potentially, if the drainage is already fine with the current percentage, there may not be a need for a seepage pit, or is that?
So if the borough engineer doesn't see a need for the additional drainage, then you're good. If he sees a need for you to put another pit in, then you have to put another pit in. If he says you can tie into what you've got, then you can tie into what you've got. Whatever he decides, he's the arbiter.
Okay, and then when do these new building plans, where, how, when, do these new building plans need to be submitted, or is this just a revision to my current plans?
Just do your drawing. Redo your drawing and submit it to the building department. Right, Tom?
Well, I mean, technically there's the 45-day period and the board has to memorialize the resolution. Sometimes, and I'll ask for legal advice on this, a board may allow an applicant to proceed at their own risk, again, recognizing the 45-day appeal period, to proceed with the project, recognizing that Memorial Day is approaching in the summer months, et cetera. So I don't know, Marina, do you have anything on that in terms of what the applicant might be able to do or not, time-wise?
Yep, so as you saw at the beginning of the meeting, we approved a resolution, 2 resolutions for prior applications. That is what would happen when the board takes a vote on your application, and that resolution has to be passed within 45 days of the meeting. And you can, in that resolution, it's going to have all the conditions of what you're going to need to do before you're permitted to build your patio. You can move forward on those if you understand the conditions today as they're approved, and work with the borough engineer to get those done, or you could wait until the resolution is passed just to make sure that you're going to meet all of the requirements.
Councilman Kaufman, are there any people on the call here that could be an objector from the public?
No, there is no one.
Okay. So, Mr. Do you understand what what the board attorney said here? Basically, that it's on you. If you get your approval tonight, and you understand the approval you've been given, if you want to start preliminary stuff, that's on you. If a neighbor decides that he wants to fight your application, he'll have, I believe, 45 days from the time we memorialize this to file a lawsuit. If you don't think you're going to have a problem with any of your neighbors, it's on you what you want to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think most of my neighbors were supportive of the project because they wanted their kids to also play here. But in terms of what was said by legal, is it so I need to submit a revised proposal, but in the meantime I can continue my project with the potential of there being an objection to it?
It would be a permit application with the building department for a patio. So there's an application fee. It might be like $50, and generally a revised sketch of what the conditions that the board may or may not approve. 42% was thrown around. So again, that's approximately 500, 600 square feet. We could talk about what that means exactly and dimension-wise, but that's the new sketch would reflect that.
Will be there for you if you call. You can always through the board office.
Okay. So just because I submit a revised proposal with the stipulations. And who would I submit that to?
Currently, it's the building department. The Borough Hall is not open to the public, but they are accepting applications. I think there's a drop box outside of the municipal building, is what I understand. They are available by phone during regular business hours if you have any questions too about the building permit.
Is this a similar process as what I did to apply for the variance, or is there a new document to
It's
fill out?
no, it's more straightforward. There is a separate application form. So I think it would be a zoning permit application form. And again, there might be a $50 fee and basically a sketch including the survey and proposed patio, and fairly straightforward.
Okay, and this is all, are these documents available on the building department's website, or?
I can email it to you.
Okay. And then would a similar process work where do I need to drop it off at the building department, or could I scan and provide PDFs of the documents?
It would be acceptable to me, given the circumstances from the review standpoint, but the check's got to be submitted.
The check is, if I drop off the check, I'll probably just drop off the documents.
Yeah, so I think it would all be done in the same shot is what I would recommend.
Okay.
At this point, I do want to take an opportunity to get a motion to open to the public for comment.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, any abstain? Okay, we're open to the public. Does anybody wish to speak on this application? Okay, I'll take a motion to close to the public.
So moved.
So made.
Second.
Yep. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any abstain? Okay, Mr. Sim, are you prepared to make it a formal request to the board on your change of plan?
Yes.
And what would that be?
I'm going to propose the 42% size patio with the revised stipulations for additional drainage if required by the town engineer.
Marina?
As long as, so that'll be one of the conditions in the resolution. I think that would be, if the applicant agrees to those, then the board can make a motion on that amended application.
Okay, at this time, then I'll accept a motion on this application.
Well, you ready? You ready for the motion, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, I am, Mr. Mervin.
Okay. I'll make a motion that the board amend the application for the SHIM residence at 186 Reservoir Ave, block 1209, lot 47, such that the maximum improved lot coverage does not exceed 42%, and that the applicant submit subsurface drainage improvements, subsurface disposal system, or improvements to the existing, as may be deemed by the borough engineer.
Sounds appropriate. I have a second on that.
Second.
That was, it sounded like Mr. Ryan?
Sure.
Okay. Can I have a roll call, please, Ms. Sinley?
Okay, Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
Mr. Arakelian,
Yes.
Ms. Boland is absent. Mr. Bartoloni,
Yes.
Mr. Merman,
Yes.
Mr. Grasso,
Yes.
Mr. Cray,
Yes.
Mr. Caslin,
Yes.
Councilman Kanigo,
Yes.
Mr. Gibbons,
Yes.
and Mr. Esposito.
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Shim, congratulations. Good
Yep.
luck with the project. And we hope you enjoy your new patio.
Thank you. Thank you for everyone's time.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Just
Good night,
little bit of housekeeping because I know I like to try to keep everybody abreast of what's going on. Any new members that are on board, you would have gotten an email from our clerk, who, by the way, will be returning to work, I believe, June 1st. So we welcome him back to the borough. I shouldn't say returning to work. He's been working very hard. But he's returning to the borough hall. So look forward to that, making it easier. Also, I had a discussion with the mayor and and Ray, the borough manager today. Any documents that are too big to get into PDF format, at least for the time being, we're going to go back to members. It just doesn't go to borough hall, pick up their plans, so they're just going to be mailed out. So any big plan, we don't get a lot of them, but if there's anything big that comes in, you can expect them coming in your mail. As far as pipeline, the two that I know of, one may not even be an application, up to Tom, down by where Bergen Batting was, those two buildings, they want to turn them into golf centers. I don't know if he's going to have to come before the board or not for a use change, but that'll be up to our planner. And they're still around the application on Elizabeth to change a one family into a two family, I believe, and that would be a D variance. So our councilman and mayor would be able to join us on that application. But again, we don't, I know of. So that's what's happening in town. I'm sure there's a few other properties I know that are looked at, but nothing serious yet. I do try to keep everybody abreast of what I know, because if I know it, you should know it. And I want to say thank you on behalf of the board to Councilwoman Kaufman for hosting us again this evening. She's very gracious doing it, and she does a wonderful job and keeps us all
happy to do it.
Keeps us all right in front of each other. I want to thank the mayor and the council for all the work they've been doing with this COVID that's been going on, and particularly the mayor keeping us all abreast on his website, on his Facebook page, of what's going on with the folks in town. Hopefully, we'll continue the good news of last week, and that are ill will get healthy quick. If there's no other comments, any other comments from anybody?
Mr. Chairman, Dick Merrin here.
Yes, sir.
Can you give us a status, if possible, of the Historical Society application?
So I understand that they get their DEP approval, and they did get the sewer tie-in lease, but they're still dealing with some parking stuff. Honestly, I don't know when that's going to come back. We have been carrying it, so it's going to have to be probably re-noticed by the end anyway, because the plans are going to get changed over again. Mr.
Do we need? Okay, I'm sorry. I thought you were done.
Mr. Barrett tells me they're working on it, and that's all he really has reported so far.
Do we need to formally extend his 45 days?
We're probably over that already.
Well, yeah, I recognize that, but maybe we should.
At this point, I think, Marina, you want to weigh in here a little bit? I know you're not overly familiar with the project. My opinion at this point is, because it's been so long, I think let's just let him renotice and let him come back.
For which application is it?
This is for the County Historical Society, and just again, just for some of our new members, if this was the that ran by Bergen County, then they could come before us, but it would be informative only. We wouldn't have to approve it, because the Historic Commission is a county entity. But this is the Bergen County Historic Society. That is a nonprofit that's taking over that property. And because they are nonprofit and not an official board of Bergen County, they have to come for us, both us and the county, for formal approval. So that said, I think we just talk to Mr. Barron's and Mr. Barrett and say, look, when you're ready to come back, do the renotice and let's get this thing done right.
Yeah, I would advise if they're going to come before the board and they haven't been before the board.
No, they have been before the board. They had preliminary site plan approval based on a bunch of different things they had to get done, and they haven't been able to complete their tasks. And we gave them 45 days, and that was, I don't even know how long ago it was.
Yeah, it wasn't within the past few meetings, so I definitely recommend that they renotice.
Yeah, and Mr. Barrett, he's understanding. He'll have no problem with that.
Okay.
So I don't think we have to carry that. But a good question, Mr. Is there anybody else that has anything? I want to thank everybody for this evening. Again, Mayor, thank you for joining us. I know you've been crazy busy with everything that's going on. And with that, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
But he wants to leave.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Everybody, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.
Got it.
Thank you.
Safe, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a
Take care.
great day.
Good night.
How do I get off?
That's your problem.